Good evening, everybody. It is day number 15, and my face is a little red. Let me just turn on this other light real quick. I'm sorry. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Perhaps this is a little better. I don't know. One of these days, I'm going to get this lighting correct. So with that, I'm just going to share this quick link. Thank you, everybody who's joined me so far. And, I'm going to go through some cool stories today. It's interesting with regards to Jacob. I'm learning a lot. I hope you guys are learning a lot in this process as well. And it's been a wonderful experience. And, I was sitting there thinking about that other 300 plus days, that I have to go. But I have a feeling that once I'm done with the 300 plus days, I'm probably going to start right back over, because I'm learning so much, and I think I'll have a different perspective each time that I do it. So thank you all once again for joining. I see a lot of the same folks. Hello, Donna. Hello, Jules. Good to see both of you. And I will start in 1 second. So. Okay. So let's talk about Genesis, story of Genesis. So if you're following along, it's in the 1 Year Bible under U version. And I know some other people have started some plans. We're in day 15. And I think it's wonderful if people start up their own groups and start doing this. I think it's great to get more people involved and start talking about it and thinking about what some of the key takeaways are. But obviously Jacob, so we kind of continue off where we left off yesterday. Jacob took his wife, his children, and his camels and drove off and was heading toward Canaan. And he basically left. He was leaving Laban. So he's leaving his father-in-law who, as we know, was taking advantage of him for, I guess, the good part of 21 years or 20 years, I guess 7 years for each daughter, Leah and Rachel, and then 6 years for, some of the goats and so forth, and camels and other type of livestock. And then he took off. So sure enough, Laban took off, Laban, the Aramean, took off chasing Jacob. They ended up surrounding him, or not surrounding him. They caught up to him after, I think, about 7 days. Then they were confronted. It turns out that Rachel had stolen, maybe that's too harsh of a word, taken some of the family heirlooms with her. So then Laban was complaining that Jacob stole some of his property, left in the middle of the night with his daughters, his grandkids, and was extremely upset. It was pretty, I guess I would imagine it had to be a pretty tense situation. This is in Genesis 31. And then, when, just so you know, when Laban was chasing Jacob, and Jacob was going back to be with his dad, Isaac, God came to Laban in a dream and told him, do not do anything to harm Jacob, which is good. And obviously they weren't harmed. And what ended up happening is they signed almost like a peace treaty of sorts, where Jacob was going to be on one side of these rocks, and then Laban was going to be on the other side, and that they wouldn't undermine each other. Let me look at the exact language, because it's kind of interesting. So they did a covenant. In what's interesting about the Old Testament, in my experience with people who are of Jewish descent, is, breaking bread is a really big deal, and it always has been. But I never really equated how important breaking bread was in today's day, in today's terms, or I guess in our society today, until really reading about the Old Testament and these stories about how you would seal a deal with a meal. It's kind of funny, right? I could say that like 10 times or 3 times real fast. Seal a deal with a meal. Well, I happen to be Polish. In our tradition, you seal a deal with a shot of spiritus, which is it's kind of like moonshine. It's like 180 proof or something. I don't even know. It's like I have a bottle of it, and it's like a cure-all Polish type of medicine. It's like pure alcohol, and it burns. And I joke around and said, when this whole China virus thing came out, I'm sorry, not China. I don't want them to ban this video. Sorry guys, sorry YouTube. When this virus came out, I had some of this stuff called spiritus, and the spiritus burns through. I think it just kind of like burns through any bacteria and stuff, and because it's like pure alcohol. And if you think about it, wounds are disinfected with alcohol, like pure alcohol. So anyways, I just know it's like my parents, my grandparents, everybody swore by it. I have a bottle of this stuff. That was one of the first things I bought last year because I didn't have a bottle in the house. And I just would sip a little bit because it burns going down too, folks. This is not for the faint-hearted. But anyways, that's the way we seal deals, is with the drink. And are you okay?
I was going to get that part out if I could see your done work.
Oh, it was my wife was just asking me about that word. Yeah, Nicole, if you can edit it out, it was probably around minute 5 to 6. But yeah, we'll just kind of pull that word out so that they don't yank this video down on me because of saying the word virus and another nation state at the same phrase. People get a little fired up nowadays. But anyways, Jacob and Laban sat down. They went and gathered a bunch of stones. And I kind of want to read this out. So it kind of all this came to a head after 2 decades. They were pretty pissed at each other, or Jacob was pissed at Laban and how he was treated. Laban replies to Jacob and says, "These women are my daughters, these children are my grandchildren, and these flocks are my flocks. In fact, everything you see is mine." Think about this. That Jacob worked this whole time to in a sense get his wives, I guess, Leah and Rachel, and his father-in-law still felt like he had these hooks in him. And this doesn't just happen in the Old Testament, folks. We look in this country, in America, and I've seen plenty of examples where wealthy parents or well-to-do parents and not wealthy, just middle-class parents, everybody in the whole spectrum of wealth in this country. I've dealt with all different wage earnings or wealth patterns, if you want to say it, or the wealth distributions. And, it's interesting because in what I've noticed, and, right or wrong, I got into the money management business when I was pretty young. I was about 18 years old. And I knew what I wanted to do from a young age. And I got to meet a lot of really smart people early and a lot of really wealthy people early in my life because I knew how to make money. And famous people and people that aren't famous and everybody in the middle. If you know how to make money in this world, they all seem to find you. And I'm not sure, how. Maybe people talk, but I would meet a lot of really interesting people when I'd go to these conferences, and they would kind of seek me out as to what I was thinking about things because, I can identify patterns and things taking place in the markets pretty well. Where am I going with this? Because during my career, when I would see this and do this, I would see how parents viewed their children, all different types of backgrounds, and some parents would view their children as property, kind of like Genesis, where if they don't do X, Y, and Z, they will be cut back that the other children, if they had more than one child, would get more, and they would kind of hang or hold this money over them, which I was strongly against, and I would strongly advise against it, even as a young person. Right? I didn't have a family at the time. I didn't have any kids at the time, and I would say that, is that really what you want to do? You're going to permanently damage the relationship. And I think what happens is, as some people accrue wealth, and it sounds as though I'm relating it back to the story of Laban. Laban was a very wealthy man, and he thought that wealth allowed him to have dominion into perpetuity over Jacob, as though he would never be out from his shadow, or that he gave him his daughters. In his mind, he gave him his daughters, right? He viewed his daughters as property. He viewed all the things that Jacob had worked for as he still was owed something. So he didn't get out of underneath that debt. And that's a horrible thing. And this story exemplifies how horrible that is when you just stop and pause and think about it. And if you look around your life, there's a lot of family businesses in this country, and not just in the U.S., but worldwide, where a child will go work for a family business. They'll put in 7 years, right? Or 10 years. And, I really think an earn-in shouldn't last more than 7 years, personally, based on my understanding of business. A 7-year economic cycle. Our body's rebuilt every 7 years. Every single cell in our body's rebuilt every 7 years. After 7 years, you don't owe your parents shit. Like, if you worked and you earned in something, it's not, you already paid in your sweat equity. You probably took wages below the market. So you've earned in the right and the trust to be in that business, whatever that percentage was agreed upon on the front end. And so if it was a 50-50 thing, after 7 years, you guys are 50-50. That's the way it is. You don't owe anymore. You don't owe an annuity to your parents. And I think it sounds as though this story about Laban is, I think Jacob was his annuity. Like Jacob is going to be responsible for his retirement, not just Laban's retirement, that he would have to use his energy, his insight, his knowledge into perpetuity to handle the affairs of Laban. So that means all of Laban's responsibilities. And that's horrible, and it's a different form of slavery. And we see that in the world today, and there's a lot of people that go down that path, whether they realize they're doing it or not, because once again, they're not very religious. They don't look at the stories. They don't think about these stories and these guideposts that have been around for 2,000 years and learn from them. And so that's when I was reading this, I was thinking back over my career of how many times I saw this. But then when you see it in families that are doing it, with Christian principles, I would say, and you say, look, here's the deal. We know what's fair. We talk through what's fair on the front end. And then once it's done, it's done. You each are free and independent. And as God would say, we're of free will. And so once you serve, you pay your price, so to speak, and whatever is agreed upon, if it's 5 years or 7 years or 10 years, it's whatever you agree. Your terms were to do the work to get the earn-in. After that period of time, you are not beholden to each other. The agreement should be such that you can part ways with no hard feelings or animosity. You might be sad, and that's okay. It's normal to be sad if one of you want to continue to grow and the other one doesn't. But there shouldn't be a chain attached to one of the parties in either direction. One of the parties should be able to leave. And this story, the way it comes to a head is, he says all this. Well, what can I do now about my daughters and their children? So come, let's make a covenant, you and I. So they were striking a new deal, right? So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a monument. Then he told his family members, gather some stones. So each family member took a stone, and they built a heap. And then Laban and Jacob sat down to eat a covenant meal. This goes back to the whole spiritus thing for the Polish people. And, I think there's a lot of Eastern European countries where if somebody doesn't have a drink to seal a deal, I'm not sure if it's really a deal. But anyways, that's just a little inside joke there. But to commemorate the event, Laban called the place Jigar Sahuduta, which means witness pile in Aramaic, and Jacob called it Galid, which means witness pile in Hebrew. Then Laban declared the pile of stones will stand as a witness to remind us of the covenant we made today. And that's why it's called witness pile. But it was also called a mitzvah, which means a watchtower. And may the Lord keep watching between us to make sure our covenant that we signed that we are out of each other's sight. If you mistreat my daughters or if you marry other wives, God will see it even if no one else does. He is a witness to the covenant between us. And so the pile of rocks is a witness to their vows. I will never pass this pile of stones to harm you, and you must never pass them to harm me. So that's what I'm saying. They drew a line in the sand, so to speak, or it was a line of rocks, and then they parted ways. I call on God, our ancestors, the God of your grandfather Abraham and the God of grandfather Nahor, to serve and judge between us. Okay, so they took an oath, and then they move on. And then Laban woke up the next morning, kissed his grandchildren and daughters, and left. Okay, so there it is. They struck a deal. They stuck to the deal, and then they moved on. But more importantly, this was a very big symbolic. It was not just they struck a covenant. Jacob was finally free. He was finally his own man, his own free spirit. He did his thing, and he moved on. And Laban finally let go of being a slave owner in a sense, because he thought he could be a slave owner of his son-in-law and his daughters and their kids, and so. Anyways, so that's that story, Genesis 31. Okay, so now we go to Genesis 32. So then he started to go home, and when Jacob, on his way home, angels of God came to meet him, and Jacob was excited. He said, "This is God's camp." Okay. Then Jacob sent messengers ahead to his brother Esau. Remember Esau? The one that he kind of tricked his dad, Isaac, to get the blessing from Esau, and Esau was the oldest son. So then the blessing fell upon Jacob, and then Esau felt slighted, as you can imagine. And then so it's a pretty crazy thing going on here. So now if we go to Esau, he found out that Esau had assembled an army of 400 men, right? 400 men. So now you got Jacob coming back with his wives, his servants, men and female servants, his goats, all of his property. It's kind of like you travel with everything. And imagine if you got to pick up everything inside your house, everybody in your house, and you just left. And it had to be a pretty crazy time to do all this, and to organize it, and then knowing that if you screw up along the way, or you get robbed, and someone could steal everything you own in just one swoop. And so obviously Jacob prayed to God, prayed to the Lord about his brother, because his brother may want to even the score. So he kind of divided up some of his families, so that just in case there was an issue, they could turn around and at least some of them would be able to survive, is the whole point. And so basically Jacob stayed there. Then he sent these gifts to his brother. He sent him 200 female goats, 20 male goats, 200 ewes, 20 rams, 30 female camels and their young, 40 cows, 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys, 10 male donkeys. He divided the animals into herds, and then assigned them to different servants. And then so he ended up giving all these animals, a lot of his wealth, to his brother to make amends. and then, basically he goes to him. When my brother Esau meets you, he will ask, what are you doing? Who owns these animals? You must reply, they belong to your servant Jacob, but they are a gift of mine, a gift for his master Esau. Okay, he's right behind us. Jacob gave the same instructions to everybody else, right? So then I will appease him by giving him gifts ahead of me. Okay. So then Jacob ends up wrestling with God, right? This is pretty funny because I had like a little mental wrestling job going on last Sunday or Saturday with God. So Jacob, it wasn't physical, but it was more of just a battle of not ideas, but of things that God wanted me to do. So anyways, what ended up happening is, I'm sorry, here we go. So Jacob was all alone in the camp, and a man came and wrestled with him until the dawn of break. When the man saw it and he could not win the match, he touched Jacob's hip and wrenched it out of his socket. Let me go, for the dawn is breaking. I will not let you go unless you bless me. What is your name? The man asked his name. He replied, Jacob. Your name will no longer be Jacob, the man said. From now on, it will be called Israel, because you have fought with God and with men, and you have won. And then, what is your name? And then Jacob named the place Peniel, which means the face of God. Okay, so that was when he wrestled with God, and that's when he became, he changed his name to Israel. But I'm not exactly sure what happened with Esau. So I don't really know what happened with Esau with all this just yet. And maybe it's going to be in the next part of Genesis. And I just don't remember. Esau never really stood out in my mind, but Jacob did. So I can imagine, obviously, if you know the story of Jacob afterwards, Esau clearly did not harm his brother, and he didn't do anything to in retribution for what happened. But nonetheless, the Bible keeps you kind of looking forward to the next story to see what happened to the character. What happened to Esau? I don't know what happened to him, but I only have so many hours in the day, so I don't want to kind of read ahead on that. I've just got to go on to Matthew number 10. And so this kind of goes back to the first story of Genesis 31 of tonight. And when I read this out, I'm going to read this out because it does. I think it ties in really well to this. Students are not greater than their teacher, and slaves are not greater than their master. Students are to be like their teacher, and slaves to be like their master. And slaves are to be like their master. Okay. And since I, master of the household, have been called the prince of demons, the member of my household will be called even worse names. That's a little bizarre. No doubt about that. And I just want to hit some of the highlights. Don't be afraid of those who want to kill your body. They cannot touch your soul. Fear only God, who can destroy both your soul and your body in hell. I couldn't agree with this more. And this actually ties out to what's going on in the world right now, where you have people being willing to risk their personal or family safety, or not that anybody wants to get harmed consciously, but the reason why the lunatic left and the mainstream media is trying to kill Christianity, kill the Word of God, discredit it, is because if you truly believe this statement, that if your body is destroyed or killed, it doesn't matter, that your soul continues on. If you truly believe that your soul is more important than your physical body, which I happen to personally believe that. Our soul is far more important than our body will ever be. You're a danger to people that want to be worshipped in this life. These are Satanists. These are communists. These are people that put themselves above God or think that they're equal to God, and they are not. They will never be. And if you take that stance and you hold the line and attest your faith that there's only one God and you are most definitely not God, they're pretty angry about it, and they are taking it out on us in various ways right now. We can see it through some of the public policies. We can see it by how they're attacking us, almost like passive aggressively in various horrible ways. And so we need to bring more people out of their slumber, get more people involved, and make sure that we replace more of the leadership of this country, both political parties, with people that are righteous and believe in the rule of law, believe in God first, and try to do the right thing for the people that they're helping govern on behalf of, but never attempt to rule them. And this is the phrase, not a single sparrow can fall to the ground without your Father knowing it. And the very hairs on your head are all numbered. So don't be afraid. You're more valuable to God than a whole flock of sparrows. Everyone who acknowledges me publicly here on earth, I will also acknowledge before my Father in heaven. This is Jesus speaking. But everyone who denies me here on earth, I will also deny before my Father in heaven. Don't imagine that I came to bring peace to the earth. I came not to bring peace, but a sword. See, this is the Jesus I really like. I'm not going to kid you. I like the just Jesus. So I have come to set a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. Your enemies will be right in your own household. So this is pretty cool, because Jesus is basically saying, wherever the enemies might be and where they reside, you have to take them head on. And our soul is more important than the physical manifestation of other people among us. Listen, I'm going to plug in my computer because I see that it's dying, and I didn't have that cord in. Hold on one sec. Okay. I didn't want my computer to die, because that would be a little aggravating if I just went dead in the middle of this for everybody, myself included here, folks. Thank you. Okay, so now, if you love your father or mother more than you love me, you are not worthy of being mine. If you love your son or daughter more than me, you are not worthy of being mine. If you refuse to take up your cross and follow me, you are not worthy of being mine. If you cling to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life, you will find it. Anyone who receives you receives me. And anyone who receives me receives the Father who sent me. If you receive a prophet as one who speaks for God, you will be given the same reward as a prophet. And if you receive righteous people because of their righteousness, you will be given a reward like theirs. And even a cold cup of water to one of the least of my followers, you will surely be rewarded. And so, it's pretty powerful stuff, And if you think about that, I love my parents. I've always loved my parents, and I have no doubt that they loved me growing up. But I have zero doubt in my mind that they loved God more than me. And that's all right. I never had a problem with it. And it's a really big ask, right? You remember the whole story about Abraham was going to sacrifice Isaac, right, on the altar before God had him change his mind. I think that story exemplified the whole start of all this. That if the creator of all of it wants something done, and you really know that it's the creator that's making that request of all of it, you're in a heck of a bind, right? I mean, this is where maybe the whole idea of like earlier in the talk about the master and slave, technically speaking, God could have made us all slaves, right? We could all just be slaves. and he can just demand that we worship him, or we just turn to dust in front of each other, or salt, pillars of salt, whatever you want to say. And God didn't do that. God didn't set up the game that way. That even though he had all this unlimited power, this infinite power, omnipresent, omni-knowing, he set up his world and in the universe, in the game. He set it up in a manner that he wanted us to strive to be equal with God over time, right? Like we're children of God, and that we strive to that perfection that that perfection that only God is, and that's a remarkable thing. And so when you look at the world around us with Christianity, and I'm going to say it with capitalism, right? Christianity, capitalism. Capitalism brings out the best in the human spirit if it's pure. We each, if you think about any of us in this room today, there's 30, well now there's 2 just dropped. They don't like that part of the capitalism. I went from 39 to 37. Anyways, the 37 of us, plus me, I hope I don't count in this count, but otherwise there's 36. But if any of us in this room, we sat down and there was no money in the world, and there was no economy in the world, and we were just all here, and we had to divvy up the work, and we just said, okay, what do we think is fair? Bobby's going to clean, and then someone else is going to cook. And it's like, okay, if I clean for an hour, I get a meal for an hour, right? And so we would switch off what was fair, and we would talk about what was fair, and that would allow us to maybe get things done a little faster. So when it's set up in a fair structure of time that's being saved and what we get in exchange for our time to do something else, it's a really beautiful thing. And but now let's contrast that with slavery, with Satanism, with communism. If you and I are trying to exchange something, and you have power because you were born into a particular family, or you had a position that was given to you by someone who didn't earn that position and wasn't voted in, I can do the right thing, and I can work hard, and I could try to be fair and just, right? And you can completely wipe that away, and just at a moment's notice, and take everything I create and give me a fraction of it back, because then you're going to treat me like a slave. And you don't have any qualm about it, because you think that you're a God, and you think that you're above God when you treat children of God in that manner. And that's why I say communism is Satanism. It is cut from the same cloth. There is no difference between the two. The two want you to worship them over worshiping God and putting God first. And the economic system reinforces that by stripping away your desire and your dignity to create. It stunts you spiritually, and it stunts your ability to create in this world, because you know it's not fair. And someone who knows something is not fair and unjust will just never work and create as much as people that do. And this is why I say China will fail. The Communist Party will ultimately collapse, because the human spirit craves the ability to be, not only just to be free, but to create, to do something that makes other people better off, and create value for everybody. We all want to see intrinsically. You think of it on a micro scale. Who doesn't want to see their children do great when they're growing up, and learn how to read and walk and do all these wonderful things? We intrinsically love to see that. And sometimes the world around us creates these bizarre illnesses, mental illnesses, where there's some parents that don't want to see their children do better than them, and I think that's less of a burden on, like I know that parents need to seek professional help and maybe some spiritual help, but I think some of it is our society, that we have very bizarre people among us, and institutions and movies and all this other crap that distorts people's role and where they are within the family structure. And you see this selfishness. I hate to say it, I'm first generation American, but I've witnessed more of it with second, third, fourth generation Americans than I have with Europeans or first generation Americans from any culture. So whether I met with, I've met people that are first generation Mexicans or first generation Russians or first generation Indians, or first generation Chinese, the family structure, that core process, is key. And I think that it was key for them to come here and really strike out a new life and try to have like this story of Genesis, where they want to be at one unit and they need to have a solid family to pull this off. And sometimes I think what happens in American society, because of the structures and the movies and corrupt politicians, and I think somehow that's lost along the way. And I think we need to restore that. And so, anyways, this is Matthew 11. So this is not too bad. This is when Jesus had finished giving these instructions to his 12 disciples. He went out and preached in the towns throughout the region. John the Baptist, who was in prison, heard all the things the Messiah was doing. So he sent his disciples to ask Jesus, "Are you the Messiah we've been expecting, or shall we keep looking?" Jesus told them, "Go back to John and tell him what you have heard and seen, that the blind can see, the lame walk, and those with leprosy are cured. The deaf can hear, the dead are raised to life, and the good news is being preached to the poor." And he added, "God blesses those who do not fall away because of me." And so, we kind of touched on that yesterday, that some of this with regards to ending blindness, leprosy, restoring the dead to life. These are not necessarily just literal. I think it's also figurative, that there's other figurative things that are taking place. That there's walking dead among us who don't feel connected, that Jesus was able to bring those back into the fold. With regards to leprosy, there's some people that are just toxic, and they literally cause people, other people attached to them can cause them to lose some of their spirit, or how well they can create or do things in the world, and being able to end that leprosy or that connection, and so being able to blind and see, same thing. It's an interesting thing that we can see, Americans can read the same stories as each other, and there's some Americans that see one thing and there's others that see another. And I guess you can say that the ones that are in denial about what they're reading, especially when it's horrific stuff, and it's true, are the ones that are choosing to be blind by their choice, or when somebody's telling them what's taking place and they refuse to hear it or listen to it, they're being deaf by their own choice. So once again, this does not always necessarily mean literal. It can also mean figurative. And so when you're reading this, you should try to think about how each of these sentences and stories relate to our life, because the way the Bible was written, it appears to me, at least, and maybe you guys disagree, that we have all of these experiences that we go through our entire life cycle are covered in these stories. And that's a pretty hard thing to weave into a bunch of stories. So if you If you think that was all chance, man, that's unbelievable. Like how number one, the chance of that, and number two, how incredibly intelligent somebody had to be. Like I'm talking about like godlike intelligence, like to create these stories that are so unbelievably woven into how we all behave as human beings from the onset for thousands of years, and that they were all these patterns and lessons that we would learn during our life cycle could be scripted into one book. um, you know, go find me that person that can do that just one month out, like, or 1 year out. Find me 1,000 people today that can just all work together and figure all this out 1 month out, like all these lessons that would hit without plagiarizing, of course, the greatest book ever written. I don't think you'll be able to find those people. So anyways, let's go to Psalms 13 because we're wrapping up. Oh Lord, how long will you forget me? Forever? 1 second here. Let me see here. Okay. Oh Lord, how long will you forget me? Forever? How long will you look the other way? How long must I struggle with anguish in my soul, with sorrow in my heart every day? How long will my enemy have the upper hand? Turn and answer me, O Lord. Restore the sparkle to my eyes, or I will die. Don't let the enemies gloat, saying we have defeated him. Don't let them rejoice at my downfall. But I trust in your unfailing love, and I will rejoice because you have rescued me. I sing to the Lord because he is good to me. Now, what's interesting is restore that sparkle to my eyes, right? They say this: the eyes are the windows to the soul. And if you believe that we're spirits first in human form and not humans in spirit form, which I happen to believe in that wholeheartedly, that sparkle in our eyes is our soul shining through. And so if your soul isn't shining through, then you can say that your body around it is dying in some respects. Like maybe you can say it physically as well as metaphorically. And so you should ask yourself, what is causing your body around your soul to kind of collapse on itself? And this goes back to the story about Jesus with the vine. Like Jesus, we're all branches of the vine, and he's the vine, so to speak. Remember that analogy? And that we choose to cut ourselves off from the vine. And so if we cut ourselves off from the vine, we lose that nutrition, right? Because the Spirit of Christ feeds our soul and feeds us spiritual nutrition, and the stories help revive that soul, and it trains our muscles. So just like you go to the gym, to work out, if you do cardio, you go for a walk and you work on building your heart, the same thing needs to happen to your soul. That you need to train it, you need to exercise. Exercising your soul is praying, and it's also reading stories that resonate to your soul and give it strength to know how to react in the physical world through your physical body, even though we're a spirit. And I think that's my takeaway here. While we're on that point, recently, I'm still banned for another 2 weeks on Facebook for posting something about my election testimony in Arizona. Anyways, I've been banned for a month, but I got 2 weeks left. And a friend, I could still see what some people are posting. So someone I went to high school with, same age, 45, he showed a bunch of photos of himself. And the photos were a little, they were a little bad, like from the standpoint that I feel bad for him. He's, because number one, he's around my age, maybe a couple months older or something. He's got, I think, 3 children, and he just had a heart attack. And he was overweight. I'm slightly overweight still. I'm not going to kid you. I have a couple COVID pounds to lose. And I guess he would be classified as obese. And he basically posted all his photos, like of his chest being, it's now stitched up and stuff, or scar there, but that he had to have a surgery. So he has this, they had to split his chest open to work on his heart. He showed the photos of his leg. They had to pull out some veins out of his leg for, I guess, for a bypass surgery. Um, you know, and he just looked really bad. He looked like, he said when he was looking at the photos of himself, it looked like he was in the morgue, and he said he's showing these photos to kind of hopefully wake people up to get a little healthier. And I know I've talked to people about what's happened to us as a nation, that we've all probably picked up some extra weight. We've been, so number one, physically, this has worn us down as a nation, that we're less healthy, cardiovascular wise, physically. Like our muscle strength is probably down. They've shut down our churches. They're trying to attack our spiritual side. And they're doing all these things to undermine trust in each other, so faith in each other. And then they're doing stuff to destroy our view that capitalism is the superior system. They're trying to undermine the outcomes of what capitalism looks like by highlighting crony capitalism, which is a different form of feudalism. And so we have to wise up to this multi-front attack that they're making on us. They're attacking our belief in democracy by undermining things there. They're attacking our view of truth and what information and knowledge is coming out, who can be trusted. There seems to be a lot of people that are deceptive, that they have no qualms about lying for the right amount of money in their mind. And it's really sad, and it's disgusting. And I think that now is the time that we need to focus on finding people and helping be that shining light in our own lives by just having, praying for God's help to do these things to kind of reverse the tide. We need to rebuild our strength on an individual level as Americans, as family units, so that we can we can take the country back and build a stronger foundation rooted in God first. And then if we do that, if we do God first, and we get into a better health pattern, being healthy, doing all these things to possibly eat healthier, so that we don't all end up on the ER table, as a nation. And I'm praying for my friend. I hope his recovery is as quick as can possibly be. And he it's horrible because he should live to be about 90 based on the actuarial tables, based on his age and what time when he's born and such. But I'm sure stuff happened. He's stressed out. He's eating a little more than he should. He's drinking a little more than he should. And I think we might see more of this taking place if we're not careful and don't have these frank conversations with our family and friends and say, hey, you know what? You're picking up a little too much weight. I'm not telling you that to be a jerk, but let's talk about a diet. I talked to a friend recently about that. I said, look, you need to lose some weight. I'll sit down and help you map something out, like what you need to do. Because, you're still young and you could live another 30, 40 years, and you don't want to carry all that extra weight with you for 30 to 40 years, like a boulder tied to your leg, and the sooner you can get it off in a healthy manner, the better. It'll be better for you. It'll be better for your health, your family's health. And I think, people just be happier overall. So I do believe that we need to do that. We need to start helping each other. What is this here? Fitness. So this is kind of funny. I just posted. I just saw this thing here. Uh, as I'm talking about weight loss, there's someone in the group, Nicole Fitness. So, funny timing, Nicole. Anyways, as we're talking about fitness, I can stand to lose a couple pounds. And I thought maybe just somebody just kind of slipped that in there and said, "Here's some fitness, Bobby." But anyways, and so with that being said, I'm going to read this last Proverbs, and then we're going to be done until tomorrow. She offers you long life in her right hand and riches and honor in her left. She will guide you down delightful paths. All her ways are satisfying. Wisdom is a tree of life to those who embrace her. Happy are those who hold her tightly. And anyways, so that's the end on today's lesson. So thank you everybody for joining, and I hope you guys are reading along, and I hope you find it useful. And I'm glad I can help John and everybody who's commenting. I'm just trying to do my part to keep my sanity in this world during these crazy times as well. I do think that we will prevail, and the world is already a much better place than it would have otherwise been. But sometimes we have to go through some grief and some hardship, to get to the other side a bit stronger. And so all I could say is, Nicole, anybody can join whenever they want. And oh, by the way, I just want to mention one other thing before I leave. So I created this station on this program called Stereo. You can download, if you download Stereo, it's free. It's out of the UK. And what Stereo is, I created an account. It's at Bobby Python. But what's cool about it is, my understanding is, I did a broadcast today on it about the Arizona election. There's no censorship, and basically at Bobby Python on Stereo, I can take questions from people, and until I get this other thing figured out, I'm sorry, I still haven't figured it out, where I can get people to ask questions in real time. But on Stereo, people can listen to podcasts and ask questions, and I can communicate with people, and if I can set up calls with different people. I thought it was pretty cool. I just downloaded it today for the first time. So if you follow me there, and I do a broadcast every once in a while, I don't know how much time I'm going to have to be doing that stuff there, frankly, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, check it out, and maybe we can start talking a little bit more until I get this other thing figured out, where people can talk and we can chime in, because we have over 350 days left, about 350 on the nose. So 350 days, I gotta get this broken in so that people can chime in and start talking some more too. So thank you all. I love everybody as well. God bless you. God bless your family and friends. And may God continue to bless the greatest nation in the history of the world. May peace find you, or may peace be with you. And if you don't have peace, if you put God first, I have zero doubt that peace will find you. So with that, I hope everybody has a wonderful evening, and God bless. Thank you.